In less than 1 year, we've gone from the hottest real estate market that I have ever seen to the second coldest market that I've ever seen. And right now, homeowners who are looking to sell their homes are finding out that it's really not that easy anymore. That's why, as a seller, you want to make sure that you are pricing your home correctly. By listing your home for sale at an accurate price for current market conditions, you'll be staying competitive and you might just be able to actually sell your home, even in a cold market. And today I'm going to go over a method that you can use to try and help you find the correct price for your home. Now, before I go over my method on pricing homes, I want to go over a few things that I think are really important for you to keep in mind. First off, it's really important to adjust your expectations, especially in the market that we're in right now. Having been in this industry for a while now, I can actually tell you that very often sellers overvalue their homes. Honestly, it's an understandable and completely natural thing to do. You want to get the most bang for your buck. I get it. The problem is, if you overvalue your home and you price your home too high, the house is just going to sit on the market and it won't sell. And in fact, you might actually lose money on operational costs and maintenance of your home. So it's really just best to make sure that you try to price your home correctly the first time. That way your house won't take forever to sell and you'll still be able to make money. Another thing I want you to watch out for is that even though sellers live and may have lived in a neighborhood for years, they're actually quite unfamiliar with the real estate market. So it's very easy for them to look and say, Joe down the street is selling his house for $800,000. That's what he's listed it for. That's what my house is going to sell for. But that's just not how it works. We don't look at the listing data, we need to look at the sales data, and I'm going to show you a way to do that. Usually this is something your real estate agent will do for you, but I'm going to show you how you can do this yourself with just the internet and a little research, and you can get a good feel on the market in your area. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're trying to price your home is, and you're not an agent, so you don't have access to the MLS, you're going to want to find a website that is connected to the MLS in your area. So back in the day, the MLS used to actually be like a big old book of homes that only real estate agents had access to. But now that we have the internet, things have changed a lot. Nowadays, the MLS is something that real estate still have exclusive access to, but there are some exceptions. With the rise of online real estate brokerages, we've actually started to see websites directly connected to local MLS databases. With the rise of online real estate brokerages, we've actually started to see these websites directly connected to local MLS databases. And that's actually really cool because these websites are actually making it possible for everyday people who don't have real estate licenses and are not members of the local MLS. They're making it possible to give access to this data so that they can use it to help price their homes and get a feel for the market. And Redfin is actually one such example of this. Before I keep going, I actually want to make very clear, because there's been some speculation on one of my older videos that maybe I work for Redfin. And I want to be very clear. I am not an employee of Redfin. I am not an agent for Redfin. I do not have stock shares in Redfin. I have not been paid. I'm not sponsored by Redfin. I literally have no connection to Redfin other than I actually use their site to do this. That's it. That's it. I just really like their site. They have a very good interface. It's actually better than my local MLS's interface too. So there's that. And if you compare Redfin to other sites that may or may not be connected to the MLS, for instance, I will often hear Zillow. Zillow comes up because it existed before Redfin. It was at, 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, okay, maybe like 12 or 13. It was basically the only real estate website you could go to online and look up house prices. The problem with Zillow is that those prices are usually not accurate. For the large majority of the country, Zillow is not connected to the MLS. They are connected in some small markets, but that's very few. Largely, Zillow's data is aggregated by using public records and direct information input by sellers and homeowners onto their database. And I'll be honest, it's not even necessarily just buyers and sellers. Pretty much anybody can open up an account on Zillow and say that they own a house and just enter in and try to change information. It's kind of crazy. So for that reason, I know that their Zestimate, or which is like their guess of what the home value would be, is usually very, 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 very far off from what it really is. And the listing data as a whole is very, very, usually very far off. So that's something to keep in mind. That is why I do not recommend Zillow for this. So now I am on the Redfin website. This is the homepage. So I'm just typing in the Seattle area, and you can see that it highlights a border around. I'm actually not really familiar with the Seattle area's market, and nor do I have any interest in actually servicing the city of Seattle. I don't ever really want to do business there for investing, and then yeah, it's just not my interest. I am interested in sometimes north, but mostly south. South Sound is what they call it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click remove outline, and then you'll see it's going to give me results for the whole area. I'll look a little more down. See, like here, this is more my area that I'm comfortable with, just because this is what I look at every day, is the South Sound of Washington. So now that I've got my map here, I haven't actually narrowed in on a specific house or anything right now. I just wanted to show you what it looks like. And on the right side, they have, the listings here. The first step, so I know I'm on the website, but the first step is in pricing your home is to try and understand your market by finding comparable home sales. So to do that, I've got the map ready to go. And now I'm actually going to go to all filters. Okay, so you see this here? When you sign on to Redfin, it automatically selects for sale for you. When you're looking for comparable houses to sale, we don't want to compare houses that are currently on the market. We want to make sure that we're comparing houses that have already sold. If you're comparing homes that are on the market and that haven't sold yet, you aren't getting accurate pricing data, because like I mentioned before, sellers tend to overvalue their homes. So to get accurate data, you want to look at homes for sale, because that's what buyers are actually buying houses at. Those are the prices. It's kind of like eBay. If you've ever been on eBay and you've looked for an item and you'd be like, maybe I have like a collectible like toy card or something, and so I Google it and I see, wow, there's people listing them for $1,000 or $500,000, but then there's some people that are listing them for less than that. You can't go off of it. It's almost exactly the same thing with home listings. Some people will list at reasonable prices, and some people will list at obnoxious prices. And a lot of times they might not be obnoxious prices, but they could just be kind of a little bit too high that it wouldn't make sense for a buyer to buy that home. So you want to look at, and with eBay too, there's companies that'll give you the data of the items that have sold. But last time I checked, that wasn't free access. But on Redfin, it is free for you to see how much houses have sold for, because that's public data. Now that I've selected sold listings, you know what? I know I just gave that whole lecture, but I'm gonna zero in on a house first. Here, we'll zoom in down here. Okay, this one's a good one. So this house right here, this one that says $375K, that's the house I'm going to pretend is the house that I want to sell. And you can look over here and you can see the picture on the right here. It's got a little black or gray border. So that's my target house. Unfortunately, there's no way for me to really mark this. That is the downside of using Redfin. I know in the MLS there was actually specific tools to create and find comps, but we're going to be doing this in a very manual way here. So we're just going to remember that it's this house on 119th Street Southeast. And we're going to zoom out just a little bit more. Did I lose it? Did I lose it? Right here. Maybe I'll just leave it there because it's $375. So now we're going to want to go to the filters. We've already got it on sold. That's where we want it to stay because we want to look for houses that have sold to try and price our house to get a comparable price to. So the stats on this house, this is a 4-bedroom house, 2 baths, and $1,339. You can see here that Redfin's already given you an estimate. The thing here is I'm not so sure that you can always trust this too. It used to actually be really accurate, but they changed their algorithm a few years ago, and I noticed that it's not very accurate anymore, which is kind of a bummer. So it's really still, you can kind of look at that, but you really still need to do your own comps. So this is important. 4 beds, 2 baths, $1,339. Okay. When you're looking for a house, you're looking for comparable houses. You want to try to find houses that are close as possible to the house that you're trying to sell. So we want a 4-bedroom, 2 bath house. So we want to make sure we do a house. No condos, no land, no mobile homes. Oh my goodness. No co-ops and no other stuff. That could be like businesses and who knows what else. Just a house. Sold within. Initially when we found the house, $375, we wanted to look, I chose within the last 5 years. You can sit here and you can see this last home sold for $375,000 on June 29th, 2020. So that was 2.5 years ago. We want to look for comps within the last, ideally it'd be last 1 month. But if we can't find any comps, we might change this further out. But we start with the last 30 days. Square feet, if you remember, that house was $1,339. So I like to give a little bit of leeway, like 100 in either direction. So we'll do 1,200. We'll do 1,200 to 400. Lot size. Lot size doesn't actually, I don't even bother with that. Actually, the bigger the house, in my view, the bigger the house, lot meaning more land. People think, if you're not familiar with real estate, people usually think that more land is good. But as far as buyers, a lot of people just don't want to deal with the maintenance of mowing a giant lawn. So often, especially people who don't have large families, they just want smaller land. They don't want a whole big thing. So that could reduce, the bigger the lot, I guess what I'm trying to say is, the bigger the lot, the smaller the pool of buyers there is. So it could actually hurt the pricing a little bit. At the same time, it doesn't really matter. Like, it may not even affect the value at all. It totally depends. It depends on who's in the buyer pool. Stories. Let me see here. It looks like 2, but it's not. I'm going to see what they consider it because it might be like a 1.5. Let's see what they say. I'm going down. They changed the order in which they put things here. This is what I'm looking for. All the property details. This is where the real estate agent put in as much of the information as they knew as possible. But I want to be clear. This is what the real estate agent entered in to the MLS. And sometimes real estate agents get things wrong. So it's really important not to rely solely on what's in this listing. Especially if you're like trying to buy a house. You need to actually get a house inspected to double check. A house that I bought before, like for instance, like they said that it would have forced air heating. We get in there and there's no forced air heating whatsoever at all. It's all electric. I was like, what is going on? Okay. what am I looking for? I'm looking for, here we go. It's a split entry is how they're categorizing it. They're not categorizing it as a 1.5. So do minimum 1. I'll do maximum 2. I usually don't even bother with the stories, but I am on this one. Exclude 55 plus communities. That's a big one. And I think you'll find oftentimes homes for senior citizens, 55 plus retirement communities, they'll often be lesser. But if you're looking at new build comps, as comps, which you really should never do because new builds are not comparable to homes for sale, new builds actually will charge more, like significantly more than if you were to buy a not 55 community house. It's very kind of shady. You could buy, for example, in my area, you could buy a 3,000, maybe a little less, maybe like a 2,700 square foot home from D.R. Horton for around $650 right now, maybe $675. And then they do have a 55 plus community that D.R. Horton has also built. The same house will sell for 800. The will list for 800, but it'll be the same square footage with less bedrooms. So it's very, very strange. I'm on a little rant here, but I just wanted to share that tidbit with you. Okay, garage spot. I remember. Okay, we want to click exclude 55 plus communities because we want to look at just regular houses because the house we're selling is not in a 55 plus community. Garage spots was 2 plus because it was a 2 parking spot garage. I could tell just by looking at it. I never click include outdoor parking. Some people might, but that's not a big thing to me. Let me look in here. Okay. You can really get into as much detail as you want with these features. I don't even usually get that detailed. Okay. I can see the interior. It's kind of basic. It's like got builder's grade trim. Carpet's a little older. Okay. Okay. So I'm not even going to bother with these. Cost finance. Our home, I'm willing to bet, is not in an HOA because I can tell by the year of the type of architecture, which means it's an older home. It's usually not an HOA for that type of... Oh my gosh! There's an HOA. I can't believe that! It's a whole $9 a month. Woo! Big money. No, but serious. And actually, this is not accurate. Do you see this? It's saying this house was built in 2010. This house was not built in 2010. This is an older house. They don't build houses that look like this anymore. This looks like a house from, honestly, the 70s or 80s. That's what that looks like to me. It could be even a little older than that. I'm not sure. So, another fun fact, even though it says year built in 2010, they may not be wrong because at least in my area, when they put in year built, if you go, they're grabbing this from the public records, and it's like if you have an extensive remodel that was done, the year that remodel was done, they will consider that the effective year built. So that may be what's happening here. It is entirely possible that this house had an extensive remodel and that is the effective year built. So there's that. That $9 HOA, that's interesting. I've not seen that before. Usually the minimum HOA in my market area is around $60. And it's very strange for an older house to be part of an HOA like that. Okay, so we're looking at HOA fees. See, they don't even start till $25 a month. It's not even an option. So I'm not going to bother with that. If it was a higher HOA and if it was maybe a different type of house, not even going to bother with property taxes, price per square feet. Like most of this, I don't need to get in that much detail. But there is something. Did I already choose it? I already did the square footage, didn't I? Okay. Okay. Let's see what I get. No results. Well, that's not good. Okay, how about I zoom out? Still no results. Okay. Sold within, okay, 4 beds, 2 baths. It's a 4-bed, right? 1339. Okay. 12 1 to 2 stories, exclude, sold within 1 month. Okay. So we're gonna switch that now. Sold, and we're gonna change it. Are we serious right now? Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. As you can see, even though I've changed the settings to the last sales within the last 3 months, there's still nothing. I just had to pick this house, didn't I? That's actually a good thing. Normally you would, okay, so normally you want to look within 1 mile, okay, and you want to try to find 3 comps at minimum, 3 to 5, but minimum 3 comps within a 1 mile radius of your target property. So, but sometimes it doesn't work. See? I think if I picked a bigger city that it would have been better, but also maybe not because we've had a rough amount of sales. So it's not recommended to go out past 3 months because prices were totally different 3 months ago. Totally different. Okay, so that leaves, the only thing left to do is that you actually have to zoom out a little bit more. I'm curious as to how much did I have to zoom out. I have a school pop up. That's not. Sold within 3 months. This is. Maybe this is a bad time. Okay. So this is an extreme case. This is when we start looking at the other things. I'm going to switch the baths and I'm going to go 1.5 baths. No results. Okay. I'm going to go to a 3-bedroom and see if we can comp. Boom. I got one. Got one. Okay. I got 3? I got 3 comps. One of them is not a comp. Obviously, if you look at this one, you can see this is a double wide trailer. So that's not going to work because our target house is not a mobile home. It's a built on lot house. So not going to be even comparable. That's why it was so much cheaper. It said $260,000. So exit out of that. But we do have 2 other sort of possibilities. One which seems to actually really match. It's actually pretty close. It's a split level just like the house. So let's take a look. Just like our house, it's a split level. 2-car garage. Very good. It's 3 baths. Or, I'm sorry, it's 3 beds, 2 baths. And the square footage is so close. Okay, so I'm almost curious if the original house, even though it's listed as 4, I'm almost curious if it was originally a 3 and they converted something. Or, I don't know if that happened, but this is almost an identical layout. So, as you can see. But that's good. That's good. So we can come in here. We can, right now, we look at the front picture. Okay, very similar layout, but the yard is not taken care of. Okay, so the thing is, what's really important to remember most is what determines your market value at its core is how much someone is willing to pay for it. And what people notice is what they pay for. So even if it's like a cheaper maintenance or upgrade, if it makes the house look better, what the buyer's going to see is gonna make your home value look up. So I can see the paneling on this comp that I found is older. It's not very appealing compared to this house my house that is right here in the picture. The paneling's been updated. It's got a fresh coat of paint. The deck's been redone. I mean, it looks beautiful. The curb appeal is amazing. They've got nice green They've got a nice green lawn with fresh mulch laid. I mean, curb appeal, perfect. Comp, not so much. So automatically, I know that my house, because the curb appeal is better, is already going to be worth more than the comp. But determining that is what gets a little bit hard. So now we're going to go in, and I can see, okay, this looks like possibly the original kitchen. Possibly. Which is not a good thing. That's definitely going to be decreasing the price because buyers usually want the newer stuff, and that'll cost them to replace or redecorate. Older appliances, that's going to take a hit. But the trim is definitely on par. The trim all throughout the house and the flooring honestly is in better condition than our house. So very interesting there. So you've got some things that are going to decrease the value, but a little bit that might increase. Brand new flooring in the living area. Now that looks like laminate. I could be wrong. It's actually kind of hard to see. They make it look so good now. It could be a plank flooring, but I'm leaning towards laminate. Okay. The carpet is in really good condition. The carpet in our house was very dirty. And by our house, I mean our pretend house. Okay. Bathroom, all the fixtures are older. Okay. Only thing that's newer is some of the flooring in some of the rooms. That could even be tile. But I feel like if you're not going to upgrade the rest of your house, why would you have put tile in there? Or planks. That could, we can look in the listing. See, curb appeal is not good. That's a big problem. Well, that's a big problem for them. It's a good problem for our house. So we know that a house that's almost identical really to our house, but in worse condition, sold for $424,000, almost $425,000. We'll say $425,000 in November. This one isn't really a very good comp because it's not a split level. It's a ranch, and honestly, those usually sell for more in our area than a split level or a 2-story. Yeah, see? It's also got 100 square feet less. So it's 100 square feet less, but it sold for $430. It sold for more. And look at the date, November 16, November 25. Single level houses usually sell for more than than 2 stories or split levels. And there's a reason for that. A lot of people just don't like to climb stairs. If you do open houses and you start doing open houses and you're talking to people, they just don't like them. No stairs. Personally, that's not my preference. I actually like stairs in a house, but I'm the odd one out, I promise you. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit more. Here we go. We're not going to look down there. And we're not going to look here because that's way out of the way. But we are going to look here. Okay, and this here, this was sold in December. It's not a 2-story or a split level. But I think we might be able to use that sort of as a comp because it is a single story, so it is selling for a lot more. Remember, the comp we found just a second ago from November was $425. This one is $460. The paint's it's got a really good paint job, and it's got a lot of good landscaping. There's a lot of trees that people do find really pretty, but then regret later on when they have to pick up the leaves. Whew. Okay, we go in. Trim is comparable. It's older. Carpet's in decent condition. It's definitely got wear and tear though, so it's not the worst. I'd say it's the middle in between all the other houses. It's got a fireplace, which the other houses, as far as I can tell, did not have. Some people like that, some people don't. The cabinetry is updated much more than the other two houses, although the appliances are older. Yeah. Okay. Same city, a little bit different neighborhood. But those, I could use that. I could use that. So that's gonna be 3 right there, right? So this is older, so right off the bat, like my instinct when I'm like looking at them, I want to say, okay, let's sell it for $430. But that's not going to be necessarily accurate because that was almost 2 months ago. So we really want to come up here. Look at this house. The ranch sold for $430. What was the difference? That was a $6,000 difference between the two, okay? So we have reason to see this one was $460, and it's in comparable condition to our house, although it did have a pretty newer kitchen that our house did not. I would say we're gonna deduct $6,000 for the difference between the split level and the ranch. Although honestly, that's pretty low to me. But that's just what I'm working off from the data here. In a busier market, it definitely might have made more of a difference. Like we're talking, it could have been like a year ago, it could have been like a 20 or 30 grand difference. It's crazy, but there's just not enough buyers in the market to really change the market value right now. So we've done that. Maybe I take off another $5,000 for the kitchen. Okay, and so that leaves us at $449,000, which I think is a pretty fair estimate for that house. So I believed based off of my knowledge and looking at the comps that we could list that house for $449, but I wouldn't want to list it at $449. So now that we know what the rough value is, we want to look at what's the exact number that I want. And there's different things you need to consider. Number one was a neat trick I learned from a mentor of mine a while ago. And when you go on here and you look for houses for sale, I mean, here, let's switch. Reset all. You'll start seeing, like this one right here, perfect example. It's listed for $639,000. This one here, $385,000. $424,950. You might see a house listed for $499,950. For some reason, the whole $950 thing is really popular for people to list at, and it's really a shame because I think that they are thinking about the old retail trick where grocery stores or like Target or whatever, they'll list an item at $499 because to the brain it seems like it's less than $5. But in real estate, it's a little bit different. Maybe that pricing strategy would have worked if a decade or two ago, but right now the majority of sales are happening with clients looking online and trying to do the pricing themselves. They're looking on sites like Redfin and Zillow, like we've covered before. So it's actually really important to try and list your house closer to a price threshold. And what I mean by that is that when you come to the price section here, you'll see they automatically choose 75, 100, 125. So it's very natural for people to just pick to search for solid numbers. So if you were to have a house that you were listing at $499,950, then it wouldn't show up if a buyer was looking for houses starting at $500,000. Now, that buyer very well might consider your house, but they'll never see it if they're entering in 500 to 750. They'll never see your house. So you really want to make sure that, if you get a estimate on your house that your house is worth $512,000, maybe instead of listing it at $512,000, you list it at $500,000. That way, the people who are looking for $300,000 to $500,000 houses are still going to see your house. So that's a really neat trick. I really hope I explained that properly. It's really just the search engine factor that really determines this. You want to make sure that you get as many eyes on your listing as possible. And to do that, you don't want to accidentally exclude people who are only like $50 short of what your listing was priced at. However, there's another thing to think about. Usually when you discount your price just a little bit, not too much, because if you discount it too much, people are going to think there's something wrong with your house. But if you discount it just a little bit, you'll usually get a lot more interest on your house than if you had listed it at the exact market value. So in this case, maybe I don't list my house at $450,000. Maybe I list it at $440,000. Take that extra little $10,000 off, and it gets a lot of more demand, which means a lot more offers, possibly multiple bids. Even in this market, it's possible to get multiple bids if you price it just a little bit under. So I know that this was actually probably a really long video, and I ramble a lot, so I'm sorry. But I really hope that you were able to get an idea of how to price these houses yourself. You really want to look at comparable houses in the area and really look at the interiors, the features, the decorations, the landscaping. Everything's going to work together to really determine what that market value is. And then once you do that, you really need to just think about, okay, do I want to discount this a little bit? And how am I going to price this to make sure I get as many eyes on my listing as possible? Thanks so much for watching today. I really hope you learned a lot. I will see you next time.